All right. Hopefully this is enough. Well, anyway, section 0.1 is easy enough. It's one of the simpler sections we'll cover, and it's one of the new sections here. The thing that seems to happen, I think, is you're going to see before the next test 3 types of problem that involve starting out with 2 points. One of them is what's the slope of the line that contains those 2 points. Another is what the distance is between those 2 points. And the third is what's the midpoint of the line segment that contains those 2 points. So the big deal, they're all just following a formula, and I think all 3 of the relevant formulas will be given to you on your tests. I think this semester I'm going to start using Montana State University's cheat sheet regularly. This is about a half page of formulas, and I think slope of a line and distance between 2 points and the midpoint of 2 points, a line segment with 2 points, is on it. And so, yeah, again, please get up here. Yeah, most of you are up here. That's good. Okay. So, they're on that. So the key then becomes you read the problem. You don't just say, oh, I've got a point A and a point B and a couple coordinates, and that means I necessarily do this. You got to read the problem and understand what you're getting after. So 2 of those things come up in section 0.1. The other, I believe, comes up in section 0.3. Now, the deal with both of these things in 0.1, whether it's the distance or the midpoint, is to realize that between A and B, this line segment A and B, you can make a right triangle whose hypotenuse is the line segment AB. You can always create that right triangle. And from that right triangle comes a couple of items. First of all, the distance. If this length here is, say, called little a, and this length is called little b, and this length is called little c, what does the Pythagorean theorem tell you about distance? About the length of that hypotenuse. Sure does. So it tells you that leg squared plus leg squared equals the length of the hypotenuse squared. Okay? Well, let's break it down. We realize that this length of this hypotenuse is the distance between A and B. Or sometimes geometry books will use this symbolism, just call it AB without the line segment over it. If it's AB with the line over it, it means line segment AB. If it's AB without any notation over it, that's the symbol we use for the length of this segment AB, or the distance between A and B. So we know something about that squared. Namely, it's A squared. Well, what A is, A, it turns out, is just the difference in the x values of these 2 points. So we give them coordinate names just to be generic. Okay, well, let's stick with real numbers here. So this is -1, -1, and this point here is 3, 2. Okay? So all A is going to be -1 minus 3 squared. This point minus this one squared. And that's usually done with a 2, not a 3. Okay? And then we add to it, well, the difference in y's is this length b. So we've got -1 minus 2, again, squared. This length squared, this length squared equals the hypotenuse squared. And finally, we get here that this length, just the plain old AB, is equal to the square root of 1 minus 3, or negative 1 minus 3 squared, plus negative 1 minus 2 squared. And you can't just take those square roots separately. It's not the same as adding them first and then taking the square root. In general, for any 2 points, our distance formula is going to be given by the square root of the difference in x's squared plus the square of the difference in y's. Okay? And so there's our distance formula, but it comes down to just picking off these points here and following that. Okay? Comes to recognizing that this is a right triangle. The other thing we'll talk about is finding the midpoint. The midpoint is this point right here. So we're not trying to find a number, we're trying to find a pair of coordinates. An x-coordinate and a y-coordinate for the midpoint. And it turns out the x-coordinate for this midpoint is halfway between the x-coordinates of these 2 points. And the y-coordinate of this midpoint, the height, is halfway between the y-coordinates of these midpoints. So our midpoint of the section of the line segment AB is this point. So it's going to have 2 coordinates. The first coordinate is going to be the average of the x values. The second coordinate is going to be the average of the y values. So in general, for a formula, our midpoint is going to be a point, 2 coordinates. You're going to have x1 plus x2, the average of the x's, as the x-coordinate, and the average of the y's as the y-coordinate. And what's making it simpler is I'm going to be giving you these formulas so you don't even necessarily have to remember to construct this triangle, but it probably helps in terms of interpreting the formulas. But what you will have to do is read, hey, what's it asking me for? Is it asking me for a distance? Is it asking me for a midpoint? Is it asking me for the slope of the line or even the equation of a line? What am I being asked for? Keep straight what you're being asked for, and those type of problems will be pretty easy going.